The rain hammered against the windows of my childhood bedroom as I stuffed the last of my clothes into a duffel bag. My hands shook, not from cold, but from the adrenaline coursing through my veins. Downstairs, I could hear my father pacing in the kitchen, his heavy footsteps punctuating the silence between thunderclaps. I was 27 years old, and this was the night everything changed. "Jessica," his voice boomed up the stairwell. "Get down here, now." I zipped the bag closed and took one last look around the room where I had spent my entire life. The faded posters on the walls, the bookshelf crammed with medical textbooks I had studied until my eyes burned, the desk where I had written countless essays about becoming a surgeon. All of it felt like relics from someone else's life. When I reached the bottom of the stairs, both my parents stood waiting. My mother leaned against the doorframe, her arms crossed, her face a mask of disappointment. My father stood in the center of the kitchen, his jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscles working beneath his skin. "You think you can just walk away from this family?" he said. "After everything we have done for you." "Dad, I am not walking away from you. I am choosing a different path. A different path." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You mean throwing away 4 years of medical school to open some ridiculous restaurant? Do you have any idea how stupid that sounds?" "It is not stupid. It is what I want to do with my life." "What you want?" He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Let me tell you what you want, Jessica. You want to waste your potential. You want to embarrass this family. You want to flush everything we sacrificed down the toilet." My mother finally spoke, her voice cold and measured. "We paid for your education. We supported you through everything. And this is how you repay us?" "I never asked you to pay for medical school. You pushed me into it." "Pushed you?" My father's face reddened. "We gave you opportunities most people only dream about. We opened doors for you. We knew what was best for your future." "No." I gripped the handle of my duffel bag tighter. "You knew what you wanted for my future. You never once asked me what I wanted." The silence that followed was deafening. My father stared at me with an expression I had seen countless times before, the one that said I was being unreasonable, immature, foolish, the one that made me feel small and powerless. But not tonight. Tonight I felt something different. Tonight I felt strong. "You know what your problem is?" my father said, his voice dripping with contempt. "You have always been weak. Always needed someone to hold your hand. You think you can make it on your own? You think you can survive without us?" "I know I can." "No, you cannot." He moved toward the door and opened it, gesturing to the rain-soaked darkness beyond. "You walk out that door, and you are on your own. Completely. We will not bail you out when your little dream falls apart. We will not be there to pick up the pieces when reality hits you in the face. I understand. Do you?" He leaned against the doorframe, blocking my path. "Because once you leave, that is it. No coming back. No asking for help. No reconciliation. You will be making the biggest mistake of your life, and you will have no one to blame but yourself." I shouldered my bag and walked toward the door. He did not move. "You will never make it without us," he said, his words slow and deliberate. "Mark my words, Jessica. You will fail. You will crash and burn. And when you do not come crawling back here expecting sympathy." I met his eyes, refusing to look away. "Then I guess we will see, won't we?" He stepped aside, shaking his head. As I crossed the threshold, he delivered his final blow. "You are going to regret this for the rest of your life." I turned back one last time. My mother had not moved from her spot by the kitchen door frame. She looked at me with such disappointment that it physically hurt. "Goodbye, Mom." "Goodbye, Dad." My father slammed the door so hard the sound echoed through the quiet street. I stood there in the rain, letting it soak through my jacket, my bag growing heavy on my shoulder. Behind me was everything I had ever known. Ahead of me was nothing but uncertainty. I started walking toward my car, each step feeling heavier than the last. When I reached the driver's side door, I paused and looked back at the house. Every window was dark except for the kitchen, where I could see my father's silhouette pacing back and forth. I got in my car, tossed my bag onto the passenger seat, and started the engine. As I pulled away from the curb, I did not look back again. I could not afford to. The rain continued to fall as I drove through the empty streets of Minneapolis, heading toward my friend's apartment where I would crash until I figured out my next move. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. A text from my mother. "You are breaking your father's heart. I hope you are happy." I deleted it without responding. 3 months later, I stood in the kitchen of what would become Ember, my restaurant. The space was small, cramped, and smelled faintly of grease from whatever business had occupied it before. The walls needed painting, the floors needed replacing, and the equipment was so outdated I wondered if it would pass inspection. It was perfect. My business partner, Danielle, walked through the front entrance carrying 2 cups of coffee. She had been my roommate in medical school, the only person who understood why I needed to leave it all behind. When I told her about my dream of opening a restaurant, she did not laugh or tell me I was crazy. She asked how she could help. "I brought sustenance," she said, handing me a cup. "You look like you have not slept in days." "I have not." I took a grateful sip. "I have been running numbers all night. We are going to need more capital than I thought." "How much more?" "Another 20,000 at least. The equipment alone is going to cost twice what we budgeted." Danielle winced. "That is rough. What about asking your parents?" I gave her a look that made her immediately regret the suggestion. "Right. Sorry. Stupid question." "It is fine." I set my coffee down on a dusty counter. "I will figure it out. I always do." And I did. I worked 3 jobs simultaneously, waiting tables at a fine dining restaurant downtown, doing prep work at a catering company, and picking up shifts at a bakery that opened at 4 a.m. I slept 4 hours a night if I was lucky. I lived on ramen and whatever leftovers I could sneak from the restaurants where I worked. Every penny went into Ember. My parents did not call. Not once. I told myself I did not care, that I did not need their approval or their support. But late at night, when I was too exhausted to lie to myself, I admitted the truth. Their silence hurt more than their anger ever had. 6 months after I left home, Ember opened its doors. The concept was simple. Elevated comfort food with a focus on locally sourced ingredients. I wanted to create dishes that made people feel at home, that reminded them of their childhood but with a sophisticated twist. Danielle handled the business side while I ran the kitchen. Opening night was a disaster. The stove broke down halfway through service. We ran out of our signature braised short ribs by 7 p.m., and I accidentally set off the fire alarm while searing duck breast. By the time we closed, I was ready to admit defeat. But then the reviews started coming in. The local food critic called my roasted chicken with herb butter a revelation. A popular food blogger featured our butternut squash ravioli on her Instagram, and we gained 3,000 followers overnight. Within 2 months, we had a waiting list for reservations. By the end of the first year, Ember had become one of the most talked about restaurants in Minneapolis. I hired more staff, expanded the menu, and started working with local farmers to create seasonal tasting menus. The kitchen became my sanctuary, the one place where everything made sense. When I was cooking, I did not think about my parents. I did not think about the harsh words my father had spoken or the disappointment in my mother's eyes. I just cooked. Danielle kept suggesting I reach out to them, show them what I had accomplished. But every time I thought about picking up the phone, I remembered my father's voice. "You will never make it without us." So I did not call, and neither did they. Year 2 brought even more success. Ember was featured in a national food magazine. We expanded into the space next door, doubling our seating capacity. I was invited to cook at a prestigious culinary festival in Chicago, where I met chefs I had idolized for years. My life had become everything I dreamed it could be. I moved out of Danielle's apartment and into a small loft in the warehouse district. It was not fancy, but it was mine. I furnished it slowly, carefully, choosing each piece with intention. No more sleeping on a borrowed couch. No more living out of a duffel bag. On the 2-year anniversary of the night I left home, Danielle organized a small celebration at the restaurant. Just the core staff, some close friends, and the regulars who had supported us from the beginning. We did not make speeches or toast to our success. We simply cooked and ate and laughed, the way people do when they have built something meaningful together. I was in the middle of plating desserts when my phone buzzed. I almost ignored it. We were in the middle of service, and I had a rule about checking my phone in the kitchen, but something made me look. The message was from my mother. My hands froze over the plate. I had not heard from either of my parents in exactly 2 years. Not a call, not a text, not even a message through a mutual friend. Complete silence. I unlocked my phone and read the message. Your father needs surgery, heart bypass. It is urgent. We need $10,000 to cover what insurance will not pay. Please call me. I stared at the screen, reading the words over and over. Around me, the kitchen continued its familiar rhythm. Pans sizzled, knives chopped, orders were called out. Everything was normal. Everything except the message in my hand. Danielle appeared at my elbow. You okay? You look pale. I handed her the phone without saying anything. She read the message, her expression shifting from confusion to understanding. Oh, Jessica. Yeah. What are you going to do? That was the question, was not it? What was I going to do? I did not respond to my mother's text that night, or the next day, or the day after that. Instead, I worked. I showed up at Ember at 6 a.m. and did not leave until well past midnight. I threw myself into prep work, into perfecting recipes that did not need perfecting, into deep cleaning equipment that was already spotless. Danielle watched me with concern but did not push. She knew me well enough to let me process things in my own way. On the 3rd day, my mother called. I was in the walk-in cooler, taking inventory, when my phone started buzzing. I watched it vibrate against the metal shelf, my mother's name flashing on the screen. My finger hovered over the answer button. I let it go to voicemail. 10 minutes later, I listened to the message. Jessica, it is your mother. Her voice sounded strained, older than I remembered. I know you got my text. I know you are probably angry with us, and maybe you have a right to be, but your father is sick, really sick. The surgery is scheduled for next week, and we do not have the money. We have already borrowed from everyone we know. You are our last option. There was a long pause, and I could hear her breathing. Please, she said, and her voice cracked. Please call me back. He is your father, Jessica. Whatever happened between us, he is still your father. I deleted the voicemail and went back to work. But I could not stop thinking about it. My father, who had always seemed invincible, who had filled every room with his presence, was lying in a hospital bed somewhere. He needed help. He needed money. He needed me. The irony was not lost on me. You will never make it without us. That night, after service ended and the kitchen was clean, I sat in my empty restaurant with a glass of wine and my phone. Danielle had gone home hours ago, encouraging me to do the same, but I could not leave. Not yet. I opened my banking app and checked my balance. Between my personal savings and the restaurant's operating account, I could access the money my parents needed. It would hurt. It would set back some of my expansion plans, but I could do it. The question was whether I should. Part of me, the part that still ached from my father's harsh words, wanted to ignore them. They had cut me off completely. They had told me I would fail, had refused to offer any support when I was struggling. Why should I help them now? But another part of me, the part that still remembered my father teaching me to ride a bike, that remembered my mother staying up late to help me study for exams, could not quite let go. I pulled up my mother's contact information and started typing a response, then deleted it. Started again. Deleted it again. Finally, I settled on something simple. Tell me more about the surgery. When is it scheduled? What hospital? The response came within seconds, as if she had been waiting by her phone. Next Tuesday, Abbott Northwestern. They say he has 3 blockages. Without the surgery, he could have a massive heart attack at any time. Jessica, I am scared. I read the message 3 times. My mother, who never admitted fear, who had always been the composed one, was scared. I typed back. How much do you need exactly? And when? $10,000. We need it by Monday to confirm the surgery date. Insurance is covering most of it, but there is a deductible and some of the preliminary tests are not covered. Jessica, I know this is a lot to ask. I know we have not been there for you, but please. I set my phone down and closed my eyes. $10,000. 2 years ago, that amount would have been impossible for me. I had been living paycheck to paycheck, barely scraping by. Now it was doable. Difficult, but doable. The universe had a twisted sense of humor. I spent the weekend wrestling with my decision. I talked it through with Danielle, who was frustratingly neutral. Only you can decide what feels right, she kept saying, which was not helpful at all. I went for long walks through the city, trying to clear my head. I cooked elaborate meals in my apartment that I barely touched. I made lists of pros and cons, of reasons to help and reasons to refuse. By Sunday night, I still had not decided. Then I remembered something my grandmother had told me before she passed away, back when I was still in high school. We had been sitting on her porch, watching the sunset, and she had squeezed my hand. The measure of a person is not what they do when things are easy, she had said. It is what they do when things are hard, when doing the right thing costs them something. At the time, I had not fully understood. But now, sitting in my apartment with my phone in my hand, I got it. This was not about my parents. Not really. This was about who I wanted to be. What kind of person I wanted to see when I looked in the mirror. I could hold on to my anger. I could let my father face the consequences of his cruelty. I could prove that I did not need them, that I had made it without their help, that their predictions had been wrong. Or I could be better than all of that. I picked up my phone and typed a message to my mother. I will send the money tomorrow morning. Make sure the hospital has it by Monday afternoon. I hit send before I could change my mind. 3 dots appeared immediately, indicating she was typing. They stayed there for a long time, disappearing and reappearing several times. Finally, a message came through. Thank you. Thank you so much. Can we talk? Can I call you? I stared at that message for a long time. Then I typed 5 words that would change everything. Let me think about it. Monday morning, I wired $10,000 to Abbott Northwestern Hospital, designated for my father's surgery fund. The transaction took less than 5 minutes. 2 years of work, of building something from nothing, reduced to a simple electronic transfer. I did not tell Danielle what I had decided. I did not tell anyone. I just did it. My phone stayed silent for the rest of the day. No thank you call from my mother. No acknowledgement from my father. Nothing. By Tuesday evening, I assumed the surgery had happened. By Wednesday, I figured he was in recovery. Still nothing. Thursday afternoon, while I was testing a new recipe for roasted salmon with lemon butter sauce, my phone finally rang. My mother. I wiped my hands on my apron and answered. Hello? Jessica. Her voice sounded different, lighter. The surgery went well. Your father is awake. He is going to be fine. That is good news? Yes. A pause. We got the money you sent. It arrived just in time. The hospital confirmed everything Monday afternoon. Good. Another pause, longer this time. I could hear hospital sounds in the background. Beeping machines, distant conversations, the squeak of shoes on linoleum. Jessica, I want to explain why we did not reach out before this. Why we stayed away for so long. You don't need to explain. Yes, I do. She took a breath. Your father was angry. Angrier than I had ever seen him. He felt betrayed when you left medical school. He felt like you were throwing away everything he had worked for. Everything he worked for? It was my life. I know that now. But he did not see it that way. And I supported him. I thought if we gave you space, if we let you struggle a bit, you would come back. You would realize we were right. I gripped the phone tighter. But I did not come back. No. You built something incredible instead. Jessica, I have been following your restaurant online. The reviews, the articles, everything. I am proud of you. So proud. I should have told you that sooner. The words hung in the air between us. I waited for the feeling of vindication, of satisfaction. It did not come. Instead, I felt hollow. Is Dad awake? Can I talk to him? He is resting right now. But Jessica, there is something you should know. Something I need to tell you before you hear it from someone else. My stomach tightened. What? We are in trouble. Financial trouble. Bad trouble. The medical bills are just the beginning. Your father lost his job 6 months ago. He did not tell anyone. Not even me at first. He kept pretending to go to work every day. We are behind on the mortgage. Behind on everything. We might lose the house. I set down my knife very carefully. What are you saying? I am saying we need help. More help. The 10,000 you sent saved your father's life. But it did not solve our bigger problem. We are drowning, Jessica, and I do not know what else to do. How much do you need? 50,000. Maybe more. I know that is an enormous amount. I know we have no right to ask, but I do not know where else to turn. I closed my eyes. Let me see what I can do. Really? Her voice broke. Jessica, I do not know how to thank you. After everything we said, everything we did, you are still willing to help us. He is my father, I said, echoing her words from the voicemail. Whatever happened between us, he is still my father. After I hung up, I stood in my kitchen for a long time, staring at nothing. Danielle found me there 20 minutes later. What happened? She asked. I told her everything. About the surgery, about my parents' financial situation, about the money they needed. She listened without interrupting, her expression growing more concerned with each sentence. Jessica, $50,000, that is almost everything you have saved. That is your expansion fund. That is your security net. I know. If you give them that money, you will be setting yourself back years. All the plans we made, the second location, the catering kitchen, all of it will have to wait. I know. And for what? For parents who told you that you would fail? Who cut you off completely? Who only came back when they needed something from you? I met her eyes. What would you do? She sighed. I do not know. I honestly do not know. But I do know that you need to protect yourself. You worked too hard to get where you are. You cannot sacrifice everything you have built just because they asked. Can't I? Jessica? They are my parents, Danielle. They made mistakes. Huge mistakes. But they are still my parents. How can I have the money to help them and just refuse? How do I live with myself if I let them lose everything? How do you live with yourself if you sacrifice your dreams for people who did not believe in them? I did not have an answer to that. That night, I went to visit my father in the hospital. I had not seen either of my parents in 2 years, and the nervousness surprised me. My hands were shaking as I rode the elevator to the cardiac unit. My mother was sitting in a chair beside his bed when I walked in. She stood immediately, tears springing to her eyes. "Jessica." She moved toward me, arms outstretched, then stopped. "Can I hug you?" I nodded, and she pulled me close. She smelled the same, like lavender soap and coffee. The familiarity of it made my throat tighten. "He is sleeping," she whispered, "but he knows you are coming." I told him. I looked at my father. He seemed smaller than I remembered. The hospital gown swallowed his frame, and machines beeped steadily around him. His face was pale, and tubes ran from his arms to various monitors. This was the man who had told me I would never make it. The man who had slammed the door in my face. The man who had said I was making the biggest mistake of my life. He looked vulnerable, human, breakable. We sat together in silence for a while, my mother and I. Finally, she spoke. "I have been thinking a lot about that night. The night you left." I replay it in my head constantly, wondering what I should have said differently, what I could have done to make things turn out differently. It is in the past, Mom. Is it? Because it feels very present to me. It feels like something we have been carrying around all this time, getting heavier and heavier. She reached for my hand. "Jessica, your father loves you. He has always loved you. He just did not know how to show it after you left medical school. He felt like he failed as a parent, like he raised you wrong somehow. He did not fail. He just did not listen. You are right. We did not listen. We were so focused on what we thought was best that we never asked what you wanted. And that was wrong. So wrong." My father stirred, his eyes fluttering open. When he saw me, something shifted in his expression. Not quite a smile, but close. "Jessica," he said, his voice rough. "You came." "Of course I came." He tried to sit up, winced, then settled back against the pillows. "Your mother told me what you did. The money. I do not know what to say." "You do not have to say anything." "Yes, I do." He coughed, and my mother handed him a cup of water. After he drank, he continued. "I was wrong. About everything. You did make it. You more than made it. I was an arrogant fool, and I am sorry." The apology hung in the air. 2 years of hurt, of anger, of disappointment, and he was sorry. It should have felt like enough. It should have felt like closure. But something nagged at me. Something felt off. I stayed at the hospital for another hour, making small talk with my parents. They asked about the restaurant, and I told them sanitized versions of the truth. They did not need to know about the sleepless nights or the moments when I questioned everything. They did not need to know how close I came to giving up. When I finally left, promising to visit again soon, I felt emotionally drained. The elevator ride down felt longer than the one up. I stepped out into the cool evening air and just stood there for a moment, trying to collect myself. My phone buzzed. A text from Danielle. "How did it go?" I typed back. He apologized. They both did. And I do not know how to feel about it. "Want to grab a drink?" "Not tonight. I need to think." I drove home on autopilot, my mind churning. Something about the whole situation felt wrong, but I could not put my finger on what. My parents seemed genuine. My father really was sick. The financial troubles seemed real. So, why did I feel uneasy? At home, I poured myself a glass of wine and opened my laptop. I told myself I was just checking the restaurant's reservations for the week, but my fingers typed something else into the search bar. My father's name and the company he worked for. The results loaded slowly. I found his LinkedIn profile first. According to it, he was still employed as a senior account manager at Northland Manufacturing, the same company he had worked at for 20 years. Still employed. Not laid off 6 months ago like my mother claimed. I clicked through more results. A company directory listed him as part of the sales team. A trade publication from 3 months ago mentioned him by name in an article about a major contract Northland had secured. My wine glass paused halfway to my lips. I dug deeper, searching for any news about layoffs at Northland Manufacturing. Nothing. In fact, the company had just announced expansion plans and was actively hiring. My hands started shaking. I pulled up the hospital's website and found the billing department number. It was after hours, but I left a message asking them to call me back regarding my father's account. I wanted to know exactly how much the surgery cost and how much insurance had covered. Then I did something I was not proud of. I texted my old friend Kevin, who still worked in the medical field. We had kept in touch sporadically over the years. Hey, random question. How much does a typical heart bypass surgery cost out of pocket after insurance? He responded within minutes. Depends on the insurance, but most decent plans cover like 80 to 90%. Out of pocket is usually $2,000 to $5,000. Why? $2,000 to $5,000, not $10,000. My stomach turned. I spent the next 2 hours falling down a rabbit hole of research. I checked public records for mortgage information on my parents' house. No missed payments, no foreclosure notices, nothing. I searched for my father's name in county court records, looking for any evidence of financial distress. Bankruptcies, liens, judgments, nothing. I even checked social media. My mother rarely posted, but when she did, nothing suggested financial hardship. 2 weeks ago, she had shared photos from a weekend trip to a bed and breakfast in Wisconsin. People in financial crisis do not take weekend getaways. By midnight, I had a headache and a growing sense of betrayal. But I did not have proof. Not yet. Everything I found was circumstantial. Maybe my father really had been laid off, and the company just had not updated their directory. Maybe my mother was exaggerating about the mortgage to make their situation seem more dire, or maybe they were lying to me. I could not sleep that night. I kept replaying conversations in my head, looking for signs I had missed. My mother's voice when she first called, the way my father had apologized, the specific number they had requested, $50,000. The next morning, I called the hospital billing department. The woman who answered was polite but firm about privacy policies. She could not discuss my father's account without his permission. I am the one who paid $10,000 toward his surgery, I said. I just want to confirm the payment was applied correctly. Let me pull up the account. I heard typing. Can you provide the patient's date of birth and social security number? I did. Information I still had memorized from years of filling out forms. More typing. Then silence. Ma'am, I am showing a payment of $10,000 credited to this account on Monday. But I should mention that the patient's total out-of-pocket expense after insurance was approximately $3,200. The hospital sent a refund check for the overpayment to the billing address on file yesterday. My hand tightened around the phone. A refund check for how much? $6,800. I thanked her and hung up. $6,800. Almost $7,000 that my parents had not mentioned. $7,000 they pocketed while asking me for $50,000 more. I sat at my kitchen table, my coffee growing cold, trying to make sense of it. Maybe it was an honest mistake. Maybe they did not know about the refund yet. Maybe there was a reasonable explanation. But deep down, I knew the truth. They were using me. I spent the morning trying to focus on work. Danielle knew something was wrong but gave me space. Around noon, my mother called. "Hi, sweetheart. Just checking in. How are you doing?" "Fine." I kept my voice neutral. "How is Dad?" "Much better. They might discharge him tomorrow." She paused. "Jessica, I know we talked about the money situation. Have you had a chance to think about it? About helping us with the larger amount?" Here it was. The ask, right on schedule. "I have been thinking about it, yes." "And?" I could hear the hope in her voice, the expectation. "I need to understand the full situation first. You said Dad lost his job. When exactly did that happen?" A slight hesitation. 6 months ago, around April." "And you are behind on the mortgage by how much?" 3 months. We owe about $15,000 total." I pulled up the mortgage records I had found last night. Current. Paid through October. "That is a lot," I said carefully. "Have you applied for any assistance programs? Talked to the bank about forbearance?" "We tried all of that. Nothing worked." Her voice sounded strained now. "Jessica, I know these are uncomfortable questions, but we really are in trouble. I would not ask if we had any other option." "I know, Mom. I am just trying to understand everything so I can figure out the best way to help." "Of course. That makes sense." She sounded relieved. "So you will help us?" "Let me run some numbers and talk to my accountant. Can you send me documentation? The mortgage statements, Dad's termination letter, things like that. It will help me figure out exactly what you need." Silence. Long enough that I thought the call had dropped. "Mom?" "Yes. Yes, of course. I will put together everything and send it to you. It might take a few days. Some of the paperwork is hard to find." "That is fine. Take your time." After we hung up, I sat back and exhaled slowly. She was lying. I could hear it in every word. The hesitation, the vague answers, the excuse about paperwork. They were conning me, their own daughter. The rage came slowly at first, then all at once. I paced my apartment, my mind spinning with disbelief. How could they do this? How could they look me in the eye, apologize for years of cruelty, then turn around and manipulate me for money? But even as I asked the question, I knew the answer. Because they could. Because they thought I was soft enough, desperate enough for their approval, that I would give them whatever they wanted. "You will never make it without us." Those words echoed in my head, taking on new meaning. It was not just a prediction. It was a threat. A way to keep me dependent, to make me doubt myself so thoroughly that I would always come back to them. And when I proved them wrong, when I succeeded despite everything, they found a new way to take from me. I called Danielle. "Can you come over? I need to tell you something." She arrived 20 minutes later with takeout Chinese food and a bottle of wine. "Talk to me." I told her everything. The hospital bills, the mortgage records, the employment information, all of it. She listened with growing anger, her expression darkening with each new detail. "Those absolute bastards," she said when I finished. "Jessica, you know what this means, right? You know what they are doing?" "Using me. Worse, they are gaslighting you. They are playing on your guilt and your desire for reconciliation to steal from you. And they probably had this planned from the beginning." "You think they faked the surgery?" "No, the surgery was probably real. Heart problems run in families, and men his age have heart attacks all the time. But I bet they saw it as an opportunity. A way to get you back in their lives so they could take advantage." I pressed my palms against my eyes. "I feel so stupid." "You are not stupid. You are kind. You are forgiving. They weaponized your good qualities against you. So what do I do?" Danielle looked at me seriously. "What do you want to do?" I thought about that question for a long time. What did I want? Justice? Revenge? To expose them? To cut them off again? Or did I want something more? An idea began forming in my mind. It was petty. It was probably wrong. But the more I thought about it, the more it felt right. I want them to know what it feels like, I said slowly. To be betrayed by someone you trust. To realize that the person you thought would save you is actually the one who destroys you. Danielle raised her eyebrows. I am listening. Over the next few days, I put a plan together. It required research, careful timing, and a level of deception I did not know I was capable of. But every time I felt guilty, I remembered the look on my father's face when he told me I would fail. I remembered 2 years of silence. I remembered them asking for $50,000 while sitting on a $7,000 refund. The guilt disappeared quickly. First, I called my mother back. Hi, Mom. I have good news. I talked to my accountant and we figured out a way to get you the money you need. Oh, Jessica. She sounded genuinely thrilled. That is wonderful. I cannot tell you how much this means to us. There is one condition, though. A pause. What kind of condition? I want to be sure the money goes to the right places, so instead of giving you cash, I want to pay your creditors directly. I will contact the mortgage company, set up a payment plan with the hospital, whatever you need, but I will handle all the transactions myself. Another pause, longer this time. I do not think that is necessary. We can manage the payments ourselves. I know you can, Mom, but this way I have records for my taxes. My accountant insists on it for any family loans over $10,000. Boring legal stuff, but it protects both of us. I could practically hear her mind working, trying to find a way around this. That seems overly complicated, she said finally. We are family. We should not need lawyers and accountants involved. It is not about trust, Mom. It is about protecting everyone. This way, everything is documented and above board. No confusion later about who paid what. Let me talk to your father about it. Of course. Take your time. Just let me know what accounts need to be paid and how much, and I will handle everything. She promised to get back to me and hung up quickly. Too quickly. I waited. 3 days passed with no word from my mother. No documentation, no account numbers, nothing. On the 4th day, my father called from his cell phone. Jessica, your mother told me about your plan to pay our creditors directly. Yes. Is that a problem? It just seems unnecessary. We are adults. We can manage our own finances. We do not need you micromanaging our debts. I am not trying to micromanage, Dad. I am trying to help in a way that makes sense financially. Or you do not trust us. His voice had an edge now. Is that it? You think we are lying to you? The question hung between us. I could confront him now. Tell him I knew the truth. But that would ruin everything. Of course not, I said. I am just being careful. This is a lot of money, and I want to make sure it is used properly, for both our sakes. Well, it feels like you are treating us like children, like we cannot be trusted with our own money. It is not your money, Dad. It is my money. Money I worked very hard for. And if I am going to give you $50,000, I think I have the right to make sure it goes where it is supposed to go. Silence. Then, quietly. Maybe we do not need your help after all. What? Maybe we can figure this out on our own. We managed before you came along. We will manage now. I almost laughed. After everything, after begging me for help, they were going to pretend they did not need it, just because I would not hand over cash with no questions asked. If that is what you want, I said. It is. We appreciate the offer, Jessica. But I think it is better if we handle this ourselves. As a family. I thought I was family. Another pause. You know what I mean. Yeah, Dad. I know exactly what you mean. I hung up. Danielle came over that evening, and I filled her in on the conversation. So they backed out the moment you asked for accountability, she said. That is as good as a confession. I know, but knowing they are lying and proving it are two different things. So, what is next? I smiled. It was not a nice smile. Now we set the trap. Over the next 2 weeks, I executed my plan carefully. I hired a private investigator, something I never imagined I would do, to document my father's employment status and my parents' actual financial situation. I needed proof, hard evidence that could not be disputed. The report came back exactly as I expected. My father was still employed, making $75,000 a year. Their mortgage was current. They had over $30,000 in savings. No financial crisis. No desperation, just greed. With the private investigator's report in hand, I crafted the final phase of my plan. It was risky, and it required perfect timing. But if it worked, my parents would understand exactly what they had done to me. I called my mother 3 weeks after my father's dismissive phone call. I kept my tone apologetic, almost meek. Mom, I have been thinking about our last conversation, about Dad saying you would handle things on your own. Oh, she sounded surprised. Yes, we have been managing. I feel terrible about how I approached the whole thing. You were right. You are adults. You do not need me telling you how to use money I give you. That was controlling of me. Well, I would not say controlling exactly. No, it was. And I am sorry. You came to me for help, and I made it difficult and complicated. So I want to try again, if you will let me. Silence. I could practically hear the wheels turning. What are you proposing? She asked carefully. I want to give you the $50,000. No strings attached, no conditions. You can use it however you need to. I trust you. Jessica. Her voice softened. That is very generous. Are you sure? I am sure. You are my parents. You were there for me my whole life, even when I made it difficult. This is the least I can do. I do not know what to say. Your father will be so relieved. There is just one thing I would like in return. Nothing financial, just something personal. Of course, anything. I want to have dinner together, as a family, at Ember. I want to cook for you, show you what I have built. I want us to really reconnect, not just through phone calls and hospital visits. That sounds wonderful. How about next Friday? I will close the restaurant to the public for the evening, just the three of us. Friday is perfect. Great. I will handle everything. You just show up at 7 p.m. After I hung up, Danielle looked at me with concern. You are really going through with this? I am. And you are sure you want to do it at the restaurant? At the place you built? The place that means everything to you? That is exactly why it needs to be there. They told me I would never make it without them. They need to see what I made despite them. And then they need to understand what they almost took away. The week leading up to the dinner felt endless. I planned every detail obsessively. The menu, the timing, the presentation. I even invited 2 special guests, though I did not tell my parents about them. Friday arrived cold and clear. I spent the afternoon preparing, moving through my kitchen with practiced precision. Roasted chicken with herbs, garlic mashed potatoes, glazed carrots, fresh bread. Comfort food, the kind that reminded people of home and family and safety. The kind of food that made betrayal taste even more bitter. Danielle arrived at 6 p.m. to help with final preparations. You seem calm, she said. I feel calm. For the first time in weeks, I feel absolutely calm. That is either very good or very bad. We will find out soon enough. My parents arrived exactly at 7 p.m. My father looked healthier than he had in the hospital, color back in his face. My mother wore a dress I remembered from years ago, back when things were simpler. Jessica. My mother embraced me warmly. The restaurant is beautiful, even more beautiful than the photos online. My father extended his hand. then seemed to think better of it and pulled me into an awkward hug. "Good to see you, sweetheart." I led them to a table I had set in the center of the dining room. Candles flickered, casting soft shadows. Wine glasses gleamed. Everything looked perfect. "This is too much," my mother said, but she was smiling. "You did not have to close the whole restaurant just for us." I wanted to. This place is important to me. You are important to me. I wanted to share it with you properly. We made small talk while I brought out the first course. They complimented everything, asked questions about the menu, the suppliers, the regulars. My father even admitted that he had looked up reviews online and was impressed. "You really did it," he said, and there was something in his voice I could not quite identify. Pride? Regret? "You built something remarkable here." "Thank you, Dad." "I mean it. I was wrong about you. Wrong about a lot of things, and I want you to know that." My mother reached across the table and squeezed my hand. We both were, but we are so grateful for this second chance, for your forgiveness. "About that," I said, "before we go any further, there is something I need to discuss with you." My father set down his fork. "What is it?" "The $50,000. I have been thinking about it, about the best way to help you both, and I realized something important." "What?" My mother's smile faltered slightly. "I realize that I do not actually know what your financial situation is. Not really. You have told me you are in crisis, but I have not seen any proof. And before I hand over that much money, I think I deserve to understand exactly where it is going." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. My father's expression hardened. "We have been through this," he said. "We are your parents. You should not need proof." "But I do. See, I have been doing some research, and I discovered some interesting things." I pulled out my phone and opened a folder I had prepared. For example, I learned that Northland Manufacturing has not had any layoffs in the past year. In fact, they have been hiring. Their website lists you as a senior account manager, Dad. Current tense. My mother's face went pale. "I also pulled public records on your mortgage. You are current on all payments. No missed months. No foreclosure notices." "Jessica," my mother started. "I am not done. I contacted the hospital billing department. They told me that after insurance, your out-of-pocket expense was $3,200, which means the $10,000 I sent you left almost $7,000 extra. Money you never mentioned." The silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. My father's jaw clenched, the same way it had the night I left home. My mother stared at her plate, unable to meet my eyes. "So I hired a private investigator," I continued, my voice steady, "just to be absolutely certain. And he confirmed everything. You are not in financial trouble. You never were. You saw an opportunity in Dad's surgery, a way to get back into my life, and you took it. You used my guilt, my desire for reconciliation, to steal from me." My father stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "How dare you accuse us of stealing? We are your parents." "Exactly. You are my parents. The people who should have supported me, who should have believed in me. Instead, you told me I would fail. You cut me off completely. And when I proved you wrong, when I built this despite you, you came back to take what you could." "That is not what happened," my mother said weakly. "You do not understand." "Then explain it to me. Explain why you lied about being laid off. Explain why you lied about the mortgage. Explain why you pocketed $7,000 of my money and then asked for $50,000 more." Neither of them spoke. They could not. There was no explanation that would make this right. "You want to know what the worst part is?" I said. "It is not the money. I can make more money. It is that you made me believe you had changed. You apologized. You said you were proud of me, and I believed you. I wanted so badly to have my parents back that I ignored every red flag. My father's face reddened. You have always been so self-righteous, so quick to judge us. We gave you everything, and this is how you repay us? You gave me nothing. The words burst out of me, louder than I intended. You gave me expectations and disappointment and conditional love. Everything I have, everything I built, I did on my own. Without you, despite you. Then why did you agree to help us? My mother asked, tears streaming down her face. If you hate us so much, why offer the money at all? Because I needed to know. I needed to know if you actually wanted a relationship with me, or if you just wanted what I could give you. And now I know. My father pointed a shaking finger at me. You set us up. This whole dinner, this reconciliation, it was all a trap. No, Dad. You set yourselves up. I just gave you the opportunity to be honest. You chose to lie. We needed help. You needed money. There is a difference. The door to the kitchen opened, and two people walked into the dining room. My parents turned, confused. Jessica, who are these people? My mother asked. Mom, Dad, I would like you to meet Detective Harrison and Detective Walsh. I filed a police report this afternoon about attempted fraud. My father's face went from red to white. You called the police? On your own parents? Detective Harrison, a woman in her 50s with tired eyes, stepped forward. Mr. and Mrs. Brennan, we need to ask you some questions about your interactions with your daughter regarding financial matters. This is insane, my father sputtered. We do not have to talk to you. That is correct, Detective Walsh said calmly. But we have documentation of your requests for money under false pretenses. Text messages, voicemails, medical records showing the actual cost of the surgery. We also have evidence that you retained money sent for a specific purpose and used it for something else. We were going to pay her back, my mother said desperately. When? I asked. When were you going to pay me back? Before or after you got the additional $50,000? She did not answer. Detective Harrison pulled out a notebook. Why don't we step outside and have a conversation? We can do this here, or we can do it at the station. Your choice. My parents looked at each other. My mother was crying openly now, mascara running down her cheeks. My father stood rigid, his hands balled into fists. This is what you want? He asked me, his voice barely above a whisper. To destroy your own family? You destroyed this family the night you told me I would fail. You destroyed it when you chose pride over love. You destroyed it when you decided to use me instead of know me. We are still your parents. No. Parents support their children. Parents believe in them. Parents love them unconditionally. You did none of those things. You were just two people who happened to raise me, and who now think they own me. My mother reached for me, her hand trembling. Please, Jessica. Please do not do this. We can fix this. We can make it right. I stepped back, out of her reach. You had 2 years to make it right. You chose not to. You chose to come back only when you wanted something from me. Detective Harrison gestured toward the door. Let us continue this conversation elsewhere. My parents walked toward the exit, my father's arm around my mother's shaking shoulders. At the door, he turned back one last time. You will regret this, he said. Family is everything, and you just threw yours away. No, Dad, you threw me away 2 years ago. I am just refusing to be thrown away again. The door closed behind them, and suddenly the restaurant felt very quiet. Danielle emerged from the kitchen where she had been watching everything unfold. Are you okay? She asked. I sank into a chair, the adrenaline draining from my body. I do not know. Ask me tomorrow. The next few weeks were difficult in ways I had not anticipated. The police investigation moved forward. My parents hired a lawyer who tried to argue that this was a family dispute, not a criminal matter. But the evidence was overwhelming. Text messages, bank records, the private investigator's report. Everything painted a clear picture of their deception. The story leaked somehow. Maybe through the police department, maybe through mutual acquaintances. Within days, people in my parents' social circle knew what had happened. My mother's book club stopped inviting her. My father's golf buddies suddenly had full foursomes. The community they had built over decades began to crumble. Their lawyer eventually convinced the prosecutor to offer a deal. Restitution of the full $10,000 plus damages, formal apologies on the record, and probation. No jail time, but their reputations were destroyed. My father was quietly asked to resign from his position at Northland Manufacturing, not because of the legal issues, but because the company could not have someone in a client-facing role with that kind of scandal attached to them. My mother called me once during this period. I almost did not answer, but curiosity won. "I hope you are happy," she said, her voice cold. "You got what you wanted. We have lost everything. I did not want this, Mom. I wanted a family. I wanted parents who loved me for who I am, not for what I could give them. We did love you. We do love you. No. You loved the idea of me, the doctor version of me that fit into your perfect plan. You never loved the real me, the me who wanted to cook instead of perform surgeries, the me who chose passion over prestige. That is not fair. None of this is fair. But you made your choices, and now you are living with them. Just like I had to live with your choices 2 years ago." She hung up without saying goodbye. I waited for guilt to come, for regret, for the feeling that I had gone too far, been too cruel, destroyed something that could have been salvaged. But it never came. Instead, I felt lighter. Free. Ember continued to thrive. Without the looming threat of my parents' manipulation hanging over me, I could focus entirely on building something meaningful. We expanded the menu, hired 3 more staff members, and started hosting monthly collaborative dinners with other local chefs. 6 months after that dinner, I was featured in a national magazine. The article was not just about the food, but about my journey, leaving medical school, estranging from my family, building a business from nothing. The writer, a woman named Jennifer who spent a week shadowing me, called it a story of resilience and redemption. I did not mention what had happened with my parents. Some things were too personal to share with the world, but I talked about the courage it took to leave, the loneliness of those first years, the satisfaction of proving wrong everyone who doubted me. The article brought new attention to Ember. Reservations filled up months in advance. Food critics from other cities started making trips to Minneapolis specifically to eat at my restaurant. I was invited to cook at events across the country. Everything I had worked for was finally paying off, and no one could take credit for it but me. 1 year after the confrontation, I received a letter in the mail, my father's handwriting. I almost threw it away without reading it, but something made me open it. The letter was short. No apologies, no explanations, just a simple acknowledgement. You were right. About everything. I hope someday you can forgive us, but I understand if you cannot. Despite everything, I am proud of what you have built. I always was, even when I could not admit it. I am sorry I let my pride destroy our relationship. I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. Maybe someday I would respond. Maybe someday I would be ready to explore what a relationship with my parents might look like, with clear boundaries and honest communication. But that day was not today. Today, I had a restaurant to run, a staff to mentor, and a life to live on my own terms. Danielle found me in the kitchen that evening, prepping for service. "You seem contemplative." Just thinking about everything that happened. How different things could have been if they had just been honest from the beginning. Do you think they ever really wanted a relationship with you? Or was it always about the money? I do not know. Maybe they convinced themselves they wanted both. Maybe they actually believed their own lies. It does not really matter now. Does it feel like closure? I thought about that. It feels like freedom. Like I finally cut the last thread connecting me to people who only wanted to hold me back. That is better than closure. She was right. This was not about endings or beginnings. It was about continuation. About moving forward without the weight of expectations and manipulation dragging behind me. My parents lost their reputation, their standing in the community, and the respect of everyone who knew them. My father never recovered from the forced resignation. They eventually moved to a smaller town where no one knew their story, starting over in their 60s with nothing but the consequences of their choices. I learned that family is not defined by blood, but by who shows up for you, who believes in you, and who loves you without conditions. As for me, I built something beautiful from nothing, and no one could ever take that away. Looking back on my journey, I realized that revenge was not about destruction. It was about refusing to let anyone diminish what I had earned, what I had become, and what I knew I deserved.